Hello again.
Hello.
Hi there. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. All right. All right. Okay, let's wait a few more minutes before we crack on. Well, as you see in this lesson, we are going to build a Netflix survey page, let's say. So unfortunately, my computer is just shut down and just recovered now. I hope it doesn't happen again. Yeah, if you see me first time, I'm Jamil. I'm a software engineer, been developing full stack applications for many years. Also training people to help them to find their talent in technology, of course. And now I'm here. Well, I think all Saturdays we will have a class together, afternoon session. Yeah, let's see how it goes. But if you attended the ITF course, you already know me, so that's fine. That introduction is just for people who just seen me first time. All right, so I am trying to get things ready on and also waiting people to come up. Right, this time what I've got is my shortcut map. Sometimes you ask me which shortcut I am using. So I hope, can you please confirm if you see a black box right on the here? You can confirm on the chat if you want.
Yeah, I see.
You do, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So that might help you to find out which shortcut keys I'm going to use during the lesson, because I think I will use a lot. Yeah, because I got used to it. I really don't aware of I'm using a lot, but students just remind me that which shortcuts I'm using. So here is my shortcut map. Will be here. I think, yes, now, can you see it now, this one?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So I'll explain what are those, but if you're a Mac user, you already know what are those. But if you're a Windows user, I'll just change an alternative key that you can use. For example, this nice bit of butterfly here. So that is a command key for Mac. But if you see this is on, if you're using Windows, then you will use your control key. So if I'm hitting, for example, this key combination, then on your Windows, you will use Control A, basically. So that's for control for Windows, but if you're using Mac, so you already know this is a command button. If I say command, just convert it to the yourself, please. Sometimes I forgot. It's control key on your Windows. So this one, so that one is actually an alt key on your alternative. So the alt key on your Windows, but of course this is option on the Mac. So if you see this is on, then that's alt, but I think I'm not using this a lot. But again, just a reminder, so that is the alternate alt key on your Windows. Well, interestingly, we do have a control on the Mac computers, but this control button, I think, doesn't have an equivalent on the Windows. Do we have any alternative on the Windows? I think we don't. Yeah. On Windows keyboard, yeah, we don't have this alternative. But again, I will explain what this, if I use this, what actually, I will explain why I'm using it. And of course, this one is for the shift. It's highlighted now. That is the shift key. So if I'm using this shift key, so then it is same shift key on the Windows. So is that clear? So this is control. This is alt. This doesn't have an equivalent on the Windows, but there's a Shift. All right. So Shift A, of course, doesn't work. Control A, Control S, Control C, Control Shift C. So you will see all the combinations there. Is that clear?
Yes.
Perfect. So is there anyone else in the class? Are you here? Just I want to hear or see you are here. Okay, no answer. No worries. All right. So yeah, I'm not sure, but some of you have already done, maybe. I've seen, I think, Elif in the chat. Yeah, Elif has done, Emirhan has done the project. Perfect. Awesome. If you have started but haven't done, that's fine. We will do it together. And if you haven't just yet started, then no worries. Again, we will do from scratch. Okay. Now, where you can find this code, it's been shared many times, I believe, but here is the Git repo. Just really not sure how many people had ITF course, but I think there are some people haven't got an ITF, but I assume you know how to use Git, so I will not explain in detail. So then your project file will be in the HTML CSS folder. So let me share the link once again if you haven't received. So here is the link now I'm sharing in the class chat. So in the HTML folder, and actually inside the projects, we are building survey form. That is, I believe, your first project that will be in your portfolio. So you will push this into your own GitHub account. Well, just make sure I will share this link as well. Here's the link. Okay, so actually we have the README file. It explains how we will just structure our project. And this is a design file, the objectives, and then steps to solutions. And so we will follow almost everything here and do it together. Well, what we need here is actually a background image, sorry. So only the background image will be enough for us. So, and there is a project design file, the Figma file, if you have seen this before, but this Figma file will take you to the Figma documentation, which is a design program which is nicely designed. So that's the Figma. All right. Or you can just look at this image, but it will be easy to use the Figma to understand the spacing between all these items here. As let's say you have started your job as a front-end developer, then if you have a designer on your company, most probably you will receive a Figma file or maybe other design file like Sketch or Adobe XD. So you'll be receiving this design file from a designer, and you will read the design file, and then you will convert this design file to your HTML and CSS codes. So this is what we will do today. So it's really nice that we have a Figma. I wasn't expecting that, but then when I see this, oh, we have a Figma. I like Figma because it really helps. You will see how. All right. So we have the Figma file, and everything is almost fine here. So what we need is the image file, I believe, or no, this one, the background image file. And I think, I don't know. So this is this image, sorry. So what we need is the background image only. So you can just right click, download to your computer if you don't know how to pull the whole Git repo. Okay. Well, I'm not going into the Git a lot. but I will do it just on my desktop, just a folder, and we'll be building the file, and the rest is all up to you. Question: are we going to use the Figma a lot? Depends on what you're doing. If you have a designer on your company, Figma or Figma-alike applications you will use, because Figma is not only solution. Now there's Photoshop, but nobody uses. But the designer may like to use the Photoshop then, but most probably it will be Figma. But then it can be another applications like Sketch, maybe the alternative, or the Adobe XD. But basically, it's not like a complex as Photoshop or Illustrator, but it's simple to design for a web. Basically, these applications explain themselves as a design program, design application, design software for web, basically. You will understand why, okay? Because the controllers are so simple, and it's really helpful us to measure every item, the spaces in between all these boxes, let's say containers, and all these items. So we can just receive how many space we have in between, so we can apply these to our CSS codes, okay? So again, depends. Some company doesn't have a designer. Some company hires front-end developers with design skills. So the designer and the front-end developer would be same person, you, in some cases. But if you're lucky enough, you have a designer. Nice one. It's really good to work with designers, by the way. All right. So what we need is, of course, a project folder. So the project name is going to be a survey form. You can give a number, up to you. So let's give the same name as a folder name. So 001. And then on my desktop, I'm just creating a new folder. And I give this name to my folder. Okay, 001 survey form. So that's going to be my project folder. At the end, I'm going to push to my GitHub repo. All right, so my folder is ready. And let's have a look at the description. Okay, so that's basically to create a form with HTML and CSS. Perfect. My company has recently started on a project that aims to conduct a survey to measure the demands and interests of its customers. So you and your colleagues have to start to work on the project. So my company, which is Netflix, oh, very nice, decided to make conducting a survey. My job is designing that survey form for the company. That's my design file. Perfect. And here is the skeleton that's been a project requirement. Sometimes you can't decide it, but it's given like this. So here is our project skeleton. So why don't we just crack on with creating the solutions with the skeleton? So let's create skeleton for our page first before any code. So let's create these files on this folder. Well, actually what we can do, let me just open a new VS Code, new window. So sometimes, okay. All right, so that's my VS Code. You will be seeing shortly. Okay, so that's my Visual Studio. And okay, and basically I will just drag and drop on my Visual Studio, this folder, drag and drop my Visual Studio. Of course, if you just drag it on the right side, it will open the right hand side. If you drag on the left side, as you see, the left side is highlighted, so it will be open on the left side. What I'm looking for is the whole page, so it's whole gray out. If you see, that's the bottom, that's the top, but now I just drag it on in the middle, just see everywhere is blacked out. So that will open me my survey form. Of course, not the way. It's not only the way. Well, can I close the folder? I don't know. So the other way, you can just go to the file and just say open on the Windows or open folder on the Mac. So you click the open folder and find out the folder on the desktop. So that is going to be my survey form. I just click open. Then that's another way that I can open my survey form here. Well, all right. So let's have a look at the structure. Okay, so on the structure, the page, that's already given actually to you when you download this GitHub repo. That file is already there, so you don't have to actually create a README file. Well, I need a solution folder, which we don't have here. So then there is a README file, and there will be a solution folder, basically inside this structure. So let's go there. Let's create a folder. So this is creating a file. So this is creating a folder. Let's create a folder and say solution. Okay, that's my file. With this folder, I've just created my solution folder. Nothing in it. Inside this solution folder, I will create my index file, which is HTML. I will create my style CSS, and I will create my result.html file. So this all three is expected from me. So indexed, style, and result. Okay, so let's just click in this folder now, create the first file, which is index.html. That's my first file. The other one is style.css file. That's the second file. And the last one is the result.html file. Okay, so these are the files inside the solution folder. Only the README file is not here. Again, if you pull this from here, then you already have this. But if you haven't, then well, no worries. We can create this file as well. Just copy everything from here. And then create your README file. Again, if you're just following me, and you will most probably will not have a README file, well, you can create your own README file by just clicking in the main folder, not the solution folder, but clicking outside will unselect the solution, and then you will create a README file, readme.md file. Do you know what MD stands for?
No, what does it stand for?
MD. MD means markdown. You know HTML. MD is a type, the way of typing the file. So for example, to create H1, you don't create H1 tag in HTML, but you in Markdown editor, you just put hash, which means that's the H1. So that's H2. So this one is a bulleted list. Let's see. Let's get back. Okay, so H1. Okay, so this is the H1. So the next is description is H2. So next is just a paragraph. So this one. Next is H2 and a bulleted list, which is this. So Markdown editor, make it a little bit simpler. And most of the README files are Markdown file, so which is MD. Okay, so we have this Markdown file now. You don't have to create this. Again, it's not the part of the solution, but basically it's been required. Then I've just created. You can write anything about your project, but again, that's not really a part of it. Well, okay, so now, of course, this is the important part, the designing this file exactly looking like this. Okay, so we'll be using HTML4 input types, we'll be using the HTML form elements, we'll be using the CSS coloring and border, margin, padding, properties, tags, families, and the links, etc. And yeah, so let's skip to the solution. Okay, download or clone the project from repo from the GitHub, okay, which I haven't. I've just created a folder on my desktop and I directly created my files inside it, okay. So again, create a project folder local public repo on your PC. Well, that's my folder. I already created. And now let's create a survey form. So the good thing when you start your web page is, of course, the structuring your HTML first without looking any design, just the structure. So this is what we will do at the first place. Okay, so here is my Figma file, and Figma will help me a lot while doing this. How? One, again, if you are lucky, if you have a designer in your company, and if that designer knows how to structure the page, you're lucky, because let's say there's a drop down here. So that's the survey form. So it's the whole survey form. Inside the survey form, you will see there's a container. Good. Which means I have a survey form, then I can create a section in the HTML, which I can call container. Inside the container, I can see the nice structure again, the survey form itself, and the title and the description. Well, if you put them order, so that's the title, that's the description, and that's the survey form. Well, so I can create maybe an H1 tag to create this Netflix title, and then a paragraph for the description, and just a survey form. And inside the survey form, of course, we have a form area. Inside the form area, we have buttons, we have text areas, and we have all the radio buttons, the select buttons, checkbox buttons, and then all the drop downs, select box, and then the others are inputs. So it's all nicely grouped, but that gives me the idea how I will structure. Well, again, but if you're not lucky, and not every designer have to do this, they don't have to do that. They can just give you basic image file. So like this, just an image file. That may happen. So you have to analyze this page and you will decide which structure that you will follow. Again, there is no right or wrong here. You can create totally wrong structure. Then as you go along, you can come back and fix or refactor your code later. That's all fine, okay? So you don't just stick, you will create the perfect structure at first. That's impossible. Do something look like this, then come back and refactor if you have some time, okay? So that's the good practice, actually. All right. So now, looking at this, I have a survey form container, which is actually my body container in HTML. Okay, so let's come back here. Let's go to our index file. And actually, I'm not sure the difference between index and result, but I will do everything on the index file anyway. Okay. So, all right. Well, how to get the HTML? Shall we create from scratch? I would prefer, if your keyboard shortcut's working, so I basically type the exclamation mark at the beginning, okay, and hit tab key on the keyboard, then it gives me a boilerplate for HTML. But I sometimes hear some students that doesn't work, okay, so no problem. You can Google HTML starting boilerplate, so you can find out, but this time I will send you this in the class chat. Here it is. Okay, and I'm going to just change the title. That's because of my project file name is not document. It's going to be a survey form, basically Netflix survey form. So I changed the title Now it's time to create the body. Okay. All right. Inside the body, it's always have a big container. So if you look at this survey form, so survey form is our container. So then it's good to have a div at the beginning just for the full container. Yeah, the body is the container itself. That's totally fine. You don't have to do it. But sometimes to keep the body itself alone and then just creating another div actually gives you more flexibility, assign your own classes, your own IDs. So that's why it's sometimes good to have a separate div as a separate section instead of using the body. So create and div. Again, there's not an exact solution. There's no right or wrong here. So that's the way that I would follow if I would build this page myself. Okay, so well, this div actually, I need to know what is the div for. Well, remember we have ID or we have classes. That depends on your application. You can choose both. You can go for ID if you want to make it unique. There's no another duplication of this division. But if there is multiple items with the same class name, so you can go on and give a class for it. But because this is a unique one, this is just the one division here. So I will basically create an ID and I will give this actually a page container. So which is actually this one, the survey form itself is the whole page. So what I will say is the page container for it. Okay, so that's the ID of this actually division. Okay, so that was for the survey form itself, which handle the background image. Look at this, the survey form has the background image, the full, fully loaded frame. So that's why I will include my image in this div later. Okay, so inside this div, like here, inside this div, we have another container which I just created. So you can say that this is the body, and inside body I have a container. Oh wait, no, it's not the same container. Look at that. That was the big one. If you can see the blue highlight. So that's the whole page, and that's the container. So I have a second container here. Well, which I can just say that, all right, so that is my body. Okay, so this is my body here. And that is another container that I will just make it smaller. What's the difference? The color. Look at this. There is look at that. It's a little bit dark color in here, and there's the background at the behind it. But after this container, inside this container, there is a black color, where I can see somewhere in here. Okay, container box. So it's a black color, but a 30% opacity. Okay, so which I can see the container box specialty. So then that's the black color with 30% opacity. Well, that means inside my page container, I will apply this CSS rules to look like exactly in this design file. All right, so I have created my container. Inside my container, I have the title, I have the description, I have the survey form. Okay, so again, I can directly create the title and description as a separate item, but because I know HTML more than the designer, I can create a header first. Okay, as an HTML element with header. Inside this header, then I can create my title and the description here. So inside the header, let's give an ID again for it to just know what is it for. Okay, so if I say header, it's header. But if I give an ID, so I can totally give separate CSS rules for those IDs. And so this is going to be a form header. Okay, so this header for form header, because I can have multiple header in an HTML file. So this is actually for the form header. Again, I have the ID, so I can go and give some CSS rules for just this header. Inside the header, I have two items. Remember, one is the title, the form title. The other one is the form description. So let's create them. But which item to use? Okay, so that is kind of a title of the page, is the first title or heading. So maybe it's good to use the H1 for this. That's because it's the first item in the page, and then is the most dominant text there. So which I can make an H1 tag. So this H1 tag, we will write Netflix. Again, later, I will give some CSS rules. So I also assign an ID for it. I could go for CSS, sorry, I could go for class, but again, this will be a unique element. So that's why I will use ID for this case. Okay.
A question. For the header, can you still use the div instead of the header?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's not a mistake, right? It's just a preference.
No, it's a preference. But again, because we have semantic HTML, which comes with HTML5, and which is actually one of the requirements when you do an application nowadays, it's good to use header. But again, it totally depends on how you would prefer in your team. That, again, sometimes up to personal. But for me, if I would go and if I'm saying I'm using HTML5, so I would use header because it's the header of the file.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Let the search engines know this is the header. Let the crawlers know this is the header. Then it's really helpful, while the other page is just having information from your website. That's good to use HTML5 elements, which is like header, which is main, which is aside, which is semantic HTML. In Google, just you can say semantic HTML and you will see, well, let's just say together, semantic HTML. So basically, when you say HTML and semantic HTML, so these are the titles you would use. Article, SI, details, caption, figure, footer, header. So header, main, nav is basically is requirements for nowadays. It's good to use. But if you focus on just the result, you can just use div. No problem. All right.
Sorry, can I ask something?
Yes, please.
Can we use for H1 just title? Can we use just inline style? Possible?
Let me just say. You mean for H1? Yes.
Well, the span, right? Inline.
Yeah, I use span too.
Yeah, I use span too.
So you didn't use H1.
I mean, when we color, you know, net is a different color and the flicks is a different color. So that's why we use two spans, like net and then flicks.
Yeah, that is possible that I'm going to use soon, but not now. But as a Netflix itself, at least, okay, let's say in your web page, make sure you have at least one H1 element. Because, okay, you're building a website for whom? For the public. How public knows your website? From search engines. How search engines knows what's your title, what's your topic, what's your page about? They can look at the page title, which is this title. Okay, that's whole website. But if you have an H1 element in your page, then that search engines know that, okay, that's the main important item in your page, well, which is H1, okay? So basically make sure you have at least one H1 in your page. Yeah. Yeah, for the next one, after the Netflix, I can go for paragraph actually. So there's one, because it's just a text. So that's why it's good to use a paragraph here. So I will basically use a paragraph here. But in this paragraph, again, there will be many paragraphs in the page. So I will give an ID for this. Okay. So this ID, let's say the page form description. And this is the form title. If you really like HTML, if you're just into the very more details about how to give ID names and class names, go make sure you have an understanding of BEM style naming. Okay, BEM style naming. So go and search this, naming BEM. Okay, so here is the page. If you are just in detail, okay, so it's good to know the BEM. If you mention in one of your interviews the BEM, oh, this guy is not normal. Okay, so you will get an impact on recruiters. So then that's why, again, in your free time, go and check this, naming your IDs or your classes. Okay. So let's get back to project. I'm not using too detailed, but good enough to understand we have a form and we have a form header. We have a form and it's the title of the form. We have again form, so it's the description of the form. I could use just the description, that's fine. I could use the title, that's also fine. Yeah, but in BAM documentation, it basically tells you it's good to use the component name first. Then you can use a separation with a maybe underscore, maybe hyphen, that's all up to you. Then you can just give a specific part. So this is a header. So that's actually what BAM talks about. You can anytime go and check this documentation out. Well, okay. So that's the form title, that's the form description. Yes, there is two different color here. How we would achieve that soon to be coming. Okay, right. So this is the thank you for signing up. So I will basically copy the text from here. Can I copy that? I think I do. Okay, so let's just place this paragraph here. Thank you for signing up to Netflix. I like to have a space after that. Okay, that's it. So what I have is my header done. Okay, I'm done with the header. The next part is actually the main part of the page. Okay, so that's the main part. That's the header. So that's the main part. Again, you can use div if you want. Okay, so after the header, so this is the header, and I close my header here. So I can create a div, basically, and I can give an ID for it. But what I will do is I will create a main tag in terms of following HTML5 and semantic HTML rules. This main, okay? So that's main, fine, but I can still give, there is usually one main, but sometimes there could be multiple mains, some case, but very rare case. So you don't have to really give an ID for it. So I will just keep it main there, right? So this is the main part of my page. Okay, but inside the main, actually, so here is what the main part. So inside the main part, I have a form starting. Okay, so that's the main part. As you see, that black box is the main part. So then inside this main, I have a survey form. Okay, so I have the survey form. Well, let's create that survey form inside this section. Well, you can use now section tag if you want. If you don't like this main header section things, you can go for div. But again, I will go for section. Okay, so that is the section. I can have multiple sections in a file. So that's why it's good to have an ID for it. So for this time, now I will say the section is survey, of course, survey form, because it's a survey form. Okay. All right.
So,
So I've, yeah.
Again, can we use this tag section instead forms action?
For form actions, which means
Form element inside action.
this one, yeah, this section, another section. You mean?
This background black element. I mean, we learn in another class. We used form element.
Oh, the form tag, right?
Form tag.
Oh, I will. Yeah. I will come. Yeah, you can use the form itself. Yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But you know what? Because you will have a background color and you will have some. That's preference again. You can achieve the same result by following different ways. You're right. You can just use the form. But me personally, I don't like to use class and style the form element. I like to keep form as form, no styling. But if I will do some styling like a background color like this, like some paddings, I would definitely go for not the form, but I would go for a div, which is like I just did here. So there's a survey form here. You're right. Let me explain your question. Maybe the others who didn't understand. You just ask, can I use form here? Is that right? Horia?
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but what I will do again, I will use a section first. Then I will create my form element inside with no class, no ID. Okay, no styling, just form element. Okay, that's preference again. That looks more okay to me.
Or we can use div instead of section, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
Right. But again, I would prefer section more than divs. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Because the section, main, header, they don't really affect in any styling. It's just like a div, just like a container.
Now a question again. So why do we need the main and section? Like, isn't it better to have only one?
Let me explain. Again, why we design the web page? For whom?
For
For people.
customers. Yeah.
Just the people you know, or any people in the net or the web all around the world. All other people, right? How those people will find you? How do you go to a website nowadays?
Google.
How Google knows what are the sections of your page, so they can categorize your page into, in terms of the search terminologies, how they can understand the importance part of your page, like which is the H1, which is the important title in your page. What are the sections? How many sections you have in the page? So which part is the main part? Maybe you have some sidebar, which is, you can use a side tag. So how these search engines know it? By looking at your code, of course.
Right, but the thing is, like, you have a main. Do we have to have a section? Then you already have the div, right? The division.
I do. Main is the main encapsulation. I don't have multiple mains because in a page, usually we have one main area.
Okay.
So, but inside the main area, I can have multiple sections.
But the form is going to make a section, isn't it?
Form, we'll just explain, is not a section, but inside the section, you have a form. But inside section, you can have more elements other than form.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Every part here is a section, of course, until, but the search engines doesn't understand until you just say it's a section. So now I said it's a section. I know the form is starting a new section, but the name is not section, it's the form. So this could be an element in a section. In main area like this, so main is a section. Yes, it's section. We can say section. We can say division too, but the name is main. So then search engines can see that, okay, so that's the main part of the page. So they can understand. So we are talking about AI now. So all the search engines is just using their AI to understand your page, analyze your page. And this code helped them a lot. So that's why I'm using main. So, well, if I have usually one main array in a page, can I have multiple sections inside a main? Yes, I do. So that's why I'm giving a section tag. Okay, another question. In one section, can I have multiple elements? So do I have only form in a section? No, of course. I have a lot of HTML elements. So I can use a form, I can use a paragraph, I can use some other sections inside the section. That's just the structuring. So that's why, yeah, instead of a section again, there's no right or wrong here. You can just say form, that's fine. But me, when it comes to the CSS, I don't want to come back and change. I did this a lot for many years. So that's why it just looked to me right. Because when I go CSS, I have more flexibility. So basically, that's that. So I have the form. Now I am starting with the labels and also my inputs. Because inside my form, I have a label and I have the form input element. I have another label, I have another input element. I have another label, I have another input element. Again, another label and another input element. I think, okay, I think it's time to give a break. So then we usually have to give the break. Yeah, we usually give 15 minutes in the ITF. How long do we give it a break here? 15 minutes again?
Yeah.
If everybody is okay, let's do 10 till, I mean, start at 3. I feel like we're not going to finish it, and I really want to, because I have some problems there, which I didn't like. So, and it's like too far away. If you guys okay, I'm totally fine with 15 too.
But if we are usually following the 15, let's stick with the 15.
Okay,
If we do
okay.
usually, yeah. So, yeah.
Hopefully we can finish still.
What is it? Sorry.
Hopefully we can still finish in time.
Yeah.
15-minute break.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'm giving 15 then. So we'll come back 5 past your time zone. Okay. All right then. So see you 15 minutes later. There we go again. So while you're coding, let's see what's the result. What's the final result? So let's open up the file. Of course, we don't expect too much styling, right? So that's basically what we have done. Just the title and the description. That's it. This is all we've done today. Okay. You can also find the final source code in the class chat. All right. I'm just thinking. Okay. Right. There is nothing in the result, actually. I have nothing inside.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. What is it for? I mean, result HTML.
That's actually in, let's see. Inside.
I mean, do we have to do it or?
Not really, I believe. So create the main structure, this CSS, sure, looks good. Yeah, actually. That's basically the project secretary is asked to create. But again, for me, we don't need a solution folder as well. Just index and CSS will be fine, actually. That's
Okay.
because it's asked that I created. If there's a reason. But again, yeah, nothing special here. It's basically index file. Maybe in the previous version of this project might be an index file, but very, very basic one. And then it's expect you to create the result, maybe, but the previous versions. But here, I can't see anything about the result file. So let's ignore. Just create the index file with the CSS, that's fine. All right, so let's get back to here. All right, well, yeah, actually, I will switch over the project as well. Okay, so now I have the form. That will be basically my form container. So that will be my form container, and this is my form now, which I created just now. And now I will create all these items now, one by one. The first item is actually the name, the input box. Well, in this input box, we have an input box, of course. We have the label, and both of them together is grouped, which will help us to apply some CSS to giving some margins at the bottom, or for this item, margins on top. So that's why I'm going to make a group first. Let's say the form input group. So let's create one division for it. And then this time I'm going to use class. That's because I'm going to repeat almost every styling for every component, every part here. So for example, there's an input box here. So there's another input, but it will most probably the styling same. So that's why I'm going to use a class this time as an identifier. So this class is going to be a form input. So, or you can sometimes say it's form group if you want. Depends on you. So then let's say form group. It looks more so it sounds better. Yeah, form group. So it's a form group. Inside the form group, I have a label. Oops. And that label is actually name. So let's write name. And of course, right after this, I have an input box, which is the type text. Then I will have just an empty input box. We have a placeholder here. Enter your name placeholder. So let's create that placeholder. Enter your name. So there we go. That's it. Name, enter your name. Nice. I will copy as a professional developer. I will copy paste. So this is not name this time. That's age. Okay, for age. Age is usually a number, right? So then I will use a number here, not text, but number. So then, okay, question. What is the really difference if I just use number here? I know I can use text, but why should I use number? Any specific reason? I know there are a lot of reasons, but let's hear if you have your ideas.
Maybe we need the integer number.
That's right. That's right. What else could be? You most probably know it, maybe not noticed it, but I will explain today. Okay, think about a mobile phone. And you have a text input field on your mobile phone, and how your mobile phones behave if it sees a number. Have you ever noticed? No.
I don't really get a question, sorry.
Okay, so you know, we have separate input types, right? Like number, like text, right?
Well, it's logically to put the age since you are going to put a number on it, right? And it's going to give you the option, the integers.
Okay, that's the most logical explanation, of course.
Right.
That's because we will use a number. But in your mobile phone, when your browser seen it's the number type, it just opened a numeric pad for you to enter only numbers. So there's no text on your keyboard on the mobile phone, just numbers. So that's basically very detailed. But again, I don't know if you have noticed, sometimes when you have a mobile phone, in some fields, you have just numbers on your keyboard, no text.
So you cannot put any text in it, it's just a number.
And it's really helpful for the mobile phones. So then just show up some number pad for you to enter the numbers. No text layout on the keyboard, it's just numbers.
Now, are you able to put limits there? Because like I did the same thing and it gives me a negative numbers as well.
Yeah, you can just, limit with the positive number if you want. Yeah, that's fine. We can do it. Yeah. Okay. But let's finish up the
age cannot be like a negative number. So.
Of course. Yeah. Right. So, okay. So you can put min, max, actually. Like if you say min, I believe. Oops. Then most probably if you say minimum 0, then that will most probably will not just drop below 0. You can even give a max if you want. Okay. So that's it. This is for the number, but it's not finished yet. Something I'm just missed. For. Well, when we are working with the forms, this for is important. Again, it's detail, but if you're talking about accessibility, you have to know it. And again, in your interview, if you talk about accessibility, you will get a thumbs up for it. Okay, this guy knows well, right? Okay, so what is accessibility? Any idea? Accessibility. What is accessibility? On Windows, on Mac, you have accessibility settings. On your mobile phone, what is accessibility? No idea. Okay. It's basically make the web accessible to everyone. Not only who sees, not only who hears, not only who talks, not only who can type. It must be available to everyone. So if person can't say how they will use the website, they still use the website, but using the keyboards. For example, if you miss this for field, if you don't give anything this for field, and the website or your web browser can't understand which input this label is for. You have a label logically that's above the input, and again logically it's inside a div form group, but web browser doesn't give that logic to it. It doesn't understand as you do. So that's why in the label you have to give the ID of the input, which is belongs to. So let's say if this label belongs to this input, well, I know, but not the browser. So then let's change this for, so let's give an ID for this input first. Okay, so basically it's the name. So I can give name basically as an ID name. And then I should say name for it. So there's an ID name and this label is for that. And now look at the magic now. I said the when you are using your browser, if you click input box, it's highlighted, that's fine. But if you click at the label as well, it's automatically activating that folder, which means this label belongs to that field. But if you click on H, it doesn't select anywhere. Even when you use your keyboard, it doesn't automatically assign this name to this field. So again, if anybody who can't say using a computer, they will never understand what is this field for. Even you have a placeholder for it, what's the label of it? So until you have a for, which is linked to the ID of the input, then it is now grouped and the browser can understand. So this label is for this input box. Again, let's continue with the H. Again, I'm going to use H. So because I use H for the for, I'm going to H for the ID as well. Basically, that's the logic. Yes, quickly, I need to have an ID for an input, and I will assign the ID name for the for attribute of the label of the input box. If you have an IDH in the input, then for will be the ID of that input. So basically this. So I think I'm done with this. So we have an H. Okay, name H. Okay, perfect. Let's continue. Copy and paste. Well, this time I have an email. Right? I have email. So let's just change it to the email. Let's make it email. And the type also email. When you make the type email in the input form, again on your mobile, it automatically appears @ on your keyboard that you can quickly use that. If you use text for it, on your mobile phone, again, the keyboard is just a normal layout. To get the @ shown, you have to hold number button. I think, yeah, you have to hold an extra button on your keyboard on the mobile phone to see the @. But if you have email field on your mobile phone, especially, your keyboard layout will show automatically @ sign on the anywhere visible on the keyboard. So you don't have to hit extra buttons to show up the @ key, but also the dots or the .com something, it's available on your keyboard layout. So you can quickly type. You can try this out next time if you fill a form. Okay. So email fields help mobile phone to understand, their browsers to understand how they can show the keyboard layout for you on the mobile. All right. So again, I don't need a minimum for it. And of course, the placeholders should be enter your age, I think, enter your email, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, correct. Now the content type. So content type will be a drop down, which you may not know what's inside. So you can make up any names if you want. So again, I will create another form group, but this time that input will be changed to the select. Okay, so I have the label, which is going to be again content type. So let's say content type, and again, oh well, so that's email. It's not email, so it's the content type. Okay, very well. Content type. Okay, so because of its content type, I'm going to use this ID, and it's not email and it's not input even. So here what I will do. Okay. It's going to be a select box. Yes, not input, but select box. Because I have a select box, unlike input box doesn't have any closing tag like /input, but select does. So I open the select box, or let's create from scratch. That's sometimes the best way. So say select, hit tab, then let the VS Code autocomplete for you. So don't worry, the closing tag, do you have closing tag? If there's no, then yeah, you do automatically have. Again, just say select and tab. Finally, I have a select box. Do I need a name now? Not now. Just remove the name for now. Okay, let's give the ID, which is content type, basically the same as this. Okay, this is the select box. Question: does select box has a placeholder attribute? Yes. Do we have placeholder in select element? What do you think? Yes, no.
No, I think.
Okay, here we have a survey in the chat. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we have or no? Thank you, Emirhan. I think it was you, right, Emirhan?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, in class chat. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can have that.
Maybe. Only the way we can understand is, of course, let's just try. So I save my file, go to the result here, refresh, and it doesn't show anything. I mean, even the placeholder. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we don't have. Maybe because it's select box, we need some options, right? So let's create some options. Maybe it does show now something. So let's create our first option. Option value, let's say 1 for now. And then for like, because it's a content type, so we can just say like movie, or we can say series. So we have 2 available. So let's give the same name as like movie and also series as a value. Okay. So let's say if we have some placeholder here. Oh no, the movie is auto selected. Well, how can I make a placeholder for select item? What do you think?
We can use selected attribute.
No, we can use selected for what?
For option.
Yeah, but it's already selected. The movie is selected. But what I'm looking for is to create a placeholder for select box. How can I do that? Yeah, again, as a best, like a best developer, I will ask Google. Okay, placeholder for select. Look, somebody asked already. How do I make a placeholder for select box? So it's basically this. Okay, that is the placeholder. Actually, it's like an option. Okay, you create an option for it, but you have no value, of course, and it will be disabled and it will be selected. Basically, that will be your placeholder. It's a hack, by the way.
Yeah, that's very creative.
What is it?
That's very creative, the way they did it.
It's the hack.
Yeah.
It's not the correct, it's not a placeholder,
Yeah.
but it will act like a placeholder. Let's see. Like this. Usually, because it's disabled, and thanks to your CSS rule, it will be also grayed out like this. But now it's black, not gray color. But we will alter this with CSS. So that will look like a placeholder because it's disabled. Okay. The next time when you select this disabled, you can't select this again. So you have to select movie or series. So if you select movies, you can't get back select your option again. It's basically your placeholder.
Good point. Thank you.
You will learn a lot of tricks. All right. So that is basically creating a placeholder for it. Now I'm done with the select box. And by the way, check my time. So we still have. So then I will continue with what? The checkbox, I believe. Yes, we have checkbox and we have radio buttons. Checkbox has the label again. Oh, well, does it really works like a label? Or there is again trick here with the checkbox, with select box actually. And then with, no, not select, this is the select, so it's checkbox, sorry. With the checkboxes and with the radio buttons, there is a very simple trick, not that, hard one. So let's create the movie types first. Okay. Now, I will again copy one of this field, the form group, right after this form group. I will replace it. Sometimes you can make it white space, so you can basically separate the items. Okay, so basically, okay, that's my form group. So here another space that you can separate these. Again, you can give as much as space you want, so it will just increase readability. So that's good. That's good. I'm just double check if you have something missing. Maybe if I have used the same ID names. No, it's all okay. Okay. All right, perfect. Let's continue with the another form group. So this time the label is going to be movie type. Okay, so main label will be movie type, but now the problem here is if I make this as like input type, if I change the input type to checkbox, let's change it to checkbox. Okay, we don't need the placeholder, but now input type is checkbox. If I do that, and if I refresh, we have label here and we have checkbox here. So is this label for this checkbox? Or if I look at the design file, how can I create this, text comedy as the label of this checkbox? All right, that's the trick now. So this label, so movie type, zoom in. Okay, oops. All right, zoom in. Oh, sorry, movie type is actually the label of this whole input checkboxes. And the comedy is the label of this checkbox. An action is the label of this checkbox. And the romance is the label of this checkbox. But the movie type is the label of all these checkboxes. Okay, that was the basic trick. But again, I can make them a group again. So it's the form group. Yes, it's the form group, but I can create another div to say that's the checkbox group. So let's create that. So another div, and let's create a class. And this time it's not a form group, but it's going to be checkbox group. And inside this div, now I can just put this in here. What's wrong? Okay, I will explain. If you can't catch up me, then I will just share all the source code I've done so far in the class chat again. And why I can't do that? Okay, now I can do. Here is the source code so far. Okay, now, okay, first of all, this label is not for the email. Okay, just remove this. It's just a label. I have no for it because there's no input element that I can link this to. It's just a label. So there is no for it. Okay, but with this checkbox group is a separate div that helped me to take this checkbox down below the, did I save? No, let's save. Down below the movie type. Good. Movie type is like a title now. It's like a main label. But now I need another label for this checkbox. Usually we have the label first, then the element or input element or select element. But this time for the checkbox, we have the checkbox input first, label then. That's the difference in the checkboxes. Okay, and this label is for not email. That's the movie type, which is our first movie type was, I think, comedy. So for comedy. Yeah, the input and the label. Okay, and which is comedy again. Now, look, if I have no for label, okay, if I have no for a label, let's refresh. If you click comedy, it doesn't check the box, right? But if you have for comedy, now you can guess. You click on the text, then it selects the checkbox. So you don't have to exactly go in this checkbox to check it. So then you basically do this. Nice. It's like clicking this, selecting or activating, focusing that element. So again, selecting this is activating and also checking this input box. Yeah, that's what is for. Again, I'm going to create multiple checkbox groups. So be careful. I'm not copying the form group this time. I'm copying the checkbox group. That's because I will need 2 more checkboxes, which is action and romance. So copy the checkbox group inside the form group and just paste right inside in the form group. Oh, wait, what happened? So let's do it again. Copy, paste, and one more time. All right, perfect. So this is comedy. The other one is action. This is not what I was looking for anyway. Let's just make it smaller. Okay, action. And Control D, Control D, Control D selects the same text. And action and romance. Just change it to the romance. And then this will be capital. All right, double check if the IDs are matching with the 4 Romans. They're all checkbox groups. That's all fine. It's inside the one form group because this is one whole group. Inside the whole group, I have a label. Inside the label, I have a checkbox group. Inside the checkbox group, I have a checkbox itself and also the label. Checkbox and label, checkbox and label. And this part is form group. So this is form group and done. Next is for gender. Any question about this section? So instead of just sharing, I will share the, the last source code with you. But this time I will edit my previous text as I just don't want to copy paste multiple times. So I have just edited just before the Hurria's answers. So, okay, that's the updated one. All right. Now the gender, male, female, other. So I'll copy everything from the first group, which is form group. And we have 5 more minutes to the break. Again, it's a form group, but this time it's not the movie type, but it's gender. I think it's gender. Then we have male. So I will select one comedy, Control D, Control D, Control D, and I will change it to the male. But just the last male, I will make it capital. And then female, 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 female. Female. And then let's change this to the capital F. And other, the capital O. Okay. So I think I'm done with the form group, gender. Okay. All right, we are almost done before the break time. We need a feedback, but this feedback is a text box.
Sorry, can I ask something?
Yes, of course.
For gender, do we have to use div tag all checkbox element or checkbox label?
That's because we'll be very, oh yeah, checkbox group. Yeah, for the radio buttons, wait a minute. So this checkbox will be radio, sorry. This is what you mean? No.
No, div class checkbox for male, div class checkbox for female and other. Maybe can we use one div and after inside maybe we can write all male, female and other.
You mean this one? Okay. So let's just copy and then place inside and just copy and place inside, right? You mean this one?
Yeah.
Of course you can do. But again, I would do this. That's because I'm going to use CSS, right? And in CSS, I can apply some rule for this div. Then it will apply for all the other groups automatically.
This style is useful, right?
It will, yeah, you could do that in input. But if you can't make it a group, then it's hard to align them. But if you can make a group, you can align them inside this, div. That would be really easy to apply some CSS. So the question when I'm just coding, the question is, look, as this is a group, don't look at the Figma file, look at the image file. Let's look at the image file. Zoom in. Okay. All right. Look at this area. Now, question, can you see my selection now that I'm selecting some area? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Do you see numbers just next to my? So do you see some numbers?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. Now, when you look at the design file, the question I ask myself, do they look like a group? Yes. Then I make a div for them. Then I separately make a label and also the input in a group, because in design, it looks like a group. So same question for the Gmail content type, and also same question for movie type. Do they look like a group? Yes, they do. So I first create a group for all of them. Inside this group, another question. Do they look like a group? Yes. Then I do a checkbox group. So for this one. Okay. That's the question I always ask myself. And it really helps when I'm styling it. Okay, another question. Is this a group? What do you think?
No, I think it's just one.
No, right? The button is not belongs to this group. So this is a group, feedback and the text box. So that's why I'm creating another form group for it, but I will separate the submit out of this feedback group. That's the question I always ask by looking at this design file. Again, it's hard to do it the first time, but when you do it, when you make mistakes and come back your HTML file and just change it, then you get used to it. And then finally, after some experience, then you can just structure HTML as you're thinking the CSS in alongside.
Sorry, I mean, I think this is a default screen we can see, and all content the same size, same font family, because we can use just one div inside all content. Maybe after project, we can use for comedy another font family, action another font size. But now this project the same still, because maybe I thought we can use same div.
No, it's not about that. I haven't get the question. Maybe you can write me personally, then I can. Okay. Yeah. That you feel free to express yourself, and then
okay, yeah. Sorry.
Then I can try to answer your question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so well, let's do the feedback because we are going to the break time now. So feedback will be the similar one, but with the form group. It's not the checkbox group anymore. It's the form group that I've used earlier, like the select box and input box here. So, well, I'm just copying, not the, okay, I'll just copy the input. Okay, so here, and then I'll just replace right after this. And it's a form group again. It's not for email this time. It's just for the feedback. So let's just change the for and the ID for the feedback. Feedback. And then it's the type. Okay, well, hey, now this time it's a text area, not input. Well, what I will do basically, I don't need this input anymore. I need the text area. Text area. Okay, again, text area. Right now, I don't need a name. If you're using React, you will, I think, no need to use a name. Okay, so text area. Let's give an ID. Of course, it's going to be a feedback. The ID, because the for is feedback. ID will be feedback. I'll just keep this calls 30 and 10 as default. Text area has a closing tag. So here's the text area. Let's save and refresh the page. Now I have that feedback with the text box. That's fine. That's okay. And we need just one more last item, button. But again, you will ask me, I am creating another division for the button. And I will create my button. And I think the button says submit, send. So let's say send for the button. Again, why I am creating another wrapping item, why I'm wrapping the button with another div. So let's also give an ID submit form, or say form submit. Okay, so it will ask me why, and I will explain the CSS. So in the next session, we are going to apply our CSS rules for this form, and I think we are done. If we made any mistake, we will see in the CSS part, and if we do, then we will come back and we will fix. But I believe it looks okay. So let's see if it works. So I'm going to replace all the latest source code in the chat. In my latest message, I updated my code base. Okay. So that's it. If you have no question, again, we can give a 15 minutes break. And when we come, we will apply our CSS rules. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. So see you 5 past your time zone. Right. Now, of course, the most enjoyable part, CSS. Okay. All right. All right. All right, it's good to have just separate the style part so we can see the both side. All right, so we have body, we have page container. Okay. Okay, anytime when I start styling a page, I always have to reset all the CSS. Well, what does resetting means? Okay, let's have a look at the browser. I think it's good to have and separate this to another browser. Okay. All right, let's look at the page we have done so far. No zoom. So if we inspect the page, you will see there are already some CSS rules applied, but this CSS rules comes from the browser, and it depends and it acts differently in different browsers. So that's why some browsers can style H1 differently and another style give this different size for the H1, let's say. So it depends on the browser. Well, our file must be same for, I mean, when you design a page, this should look same almost every browser. That's the aim. So that's why it's good to reset some CSS settings. Again, you can go and search CSS reset tools because we have many, but I'm not going to deep into this topic. I will simply reset my HTML CSS file. But if you are curious about this, about CSS resetting, so there are different reset tools available. So you can use one of them to reset your CSS actually, if you want. But again, I will use very, very, very basic CSS reset for this project. One of them is, if you look at this, the body has margin, top, bottom, left, and right, 8 pixels. That's thanks to the Chrome. Okay. But I don't want this. So that's why I'm going to apply some basic resetting in here to reset. Remember, the asterisk will be actually selecting all elements. So that means you are going to applying all the rules below this asterisk to every component, every element in HTML. So the one is the margin. I'm going to reset the margin to 0. So as soon as I reset this to the 0, you will see there will be no more margin in the page. Did I just save it? Or maybe it was padding. Let's try the padding as well. Padding 0. Aha. What I'm doing. I didn't link the CSS to the HTML yet. No worries. So, and also the box sizing. That's important, the box sizing. If you don't make the box sizing to the border box, if you make it, it's usually the content. Default is content box. But if you apply this to the content box, I think you have done in the class. I'm not sure if you remember or not, but that's also important to make it border box, to make all the paddings and margins work well. So I have the style file, and this style file is not working because I haven't linked it yet. So let's do it right after the title here. Let's link the CS style file to here. Just say link. It's a style sheet. Where is the file? The file should be in the main file and then CSS file. Okay. So here is the link. I've just linked my CSS with this style. Now, if I refresh, no more paddings and no more other spacing. So let's go and inspect. What I've just basically done is resetting the margin. If I haven't, then you have an extra margins here. Look. So I don't want this. Again, I don't want any spacing, any margin for any element here. Look at the H1. H1 also have H1 also have its own margin, and the paragraph is also have its own margin. So if you have this asterisk, it applies all the elements, so no elements have an extra margins. Now I can control it. That's the basic reset, okay? So maybe if you want, you can add some reset, sorry, that's CSS. So reset CSS rules. So you can add some comment if you want. So that's the reset. Any question about reset? No, or yes? All right. If you have, put in a chat. So let's.
What was the question? Sorry.
Is there any question? What's the question? All right. If you have any question, just put in the chat. If not, let me go ahead. So, well, now let's look at the design file again. I'm now looking at the font size because I'm going to apply all the project at the same font size because the main elements will be using the same font size. So if I click one of them, I think the Figma version you are using isn't clickable. I think you can't click that. I basically make a copy on my own Figma. As you can see, it's a copy. So that I can edit this. Excuse me. So now look at this. The font type is actually 16, and it's the Roboto. So the design files tells me my font type for this is Roboto, and the font size is 16. So what I will do is now go to my CSS. I will add my font size and actually also the font type in the HTML because it's my main container. You know, the whole container is HTML in the CSS, if you can look at here. So it's the main component, main element. So then not the font type yet, but I will just change the font size first, because for font family, I will do later. 16 pixels. Okay, so that's the font size for now my files. If I refresh, I believe now I can see, all right, it's a 16. I think it was 16 earlier. Now it's still 16. I think font size is 16. Yeah, it's 16. That's fine. It's 16. Okay, let's continue. All right, in case it is not, then I now know that it's 16. All right, the next, let's go from top to bottom, the body. So, okay, where is my body part? Here is the body. And in my design file, the body, if you remember, has a background image, which is this. Oops. Now, the survey form is the body. So this body has a background image. Okay, so I need this background image from here. If you already pulled this file, then you do have, but I don't have that yet. So I will just save it on my computer first. Save. Okay, I'm now saving into my solution folder directly, and background image is the file name. Save it. Okay, now I have exactly with the same folder with my CSS file. So let's just go back. I have this background image. So I will apply this background image to my body. Inside the body, I'm going to use background now image. And my background image is actually a file. So I'm going to use a URL function here. Inside this URL function, I will redirect this to the file. You can use double quote, you can use single quote, or you don't use, if you have no space, you don't have to use any, this quotation mark. So, so it's inside this same folder with my CSS. Look, as soon as I type this dot and slash means show me all the files in the same folder with the CSS. So which is this image. I just basically click that and done. That's it. So now let's have a look if anything works fine. Here, refresh. Oops, here we go. Now, the other problem is the font color, because it's default black, and we need to change it to white. So if you remember, the CSS doesn't have font color while we have a color. So then I will just say white for it. Save. And finally, I will get a white text color for this file. Beautiful. That's the CSS so far. All right. Now, okay. Don't wait me to ask you have any question. So just put in a chat. I'm following your chat. So if I don't see any question, I will continue. Okay, next. The next part is the page container. And if you look at the design file again, in the page container, you can see a little fade out effect to the black. So we have this black box here as a container. Now, if I look at this container has a space from top 30 pixels and 30 pixels from bottom, 100 pixels from right, and 100 pixels from left. How do I see it? Currently, if you look at here, I'm holding my control, if you're on the Windows, or sorry, alternate key or option key on the Mac. So if you hold option key and if you click, let's say you click the element first, then if you hold your option key and then just move your mouse to the main container, you can see the spacing. Okay, so this is the spacing, 30, 100. Question, is it padding or margin? That's the question you should ask yourself. I will answer this. I will use it as a padding. So I'll apply padding for my page container, which is 30 bottom and top, 100 left and right, 30 and 100. So here it is. It's the page container, this one. So it's an ID. So I will use hash, and I will say page container. And now padding. The first thing I will apply here is the padding. Okay. So wait, if I apply padding, that just make me a problem. Okay, now again, I have to think carefully. All right, so it's the page container. Let's go and check out this HTML file once again. Okay, right click, oh, it's here. Okay, it's the page container. Now, if I use padding, okay, I will have the space I want, but because I have this padding inside, when I change color, padding will not be affected. What I mean, so what I need is actually the padding from the body, not in the page container, but I will apply padding to the body. That's important. Again, if I do apply this padding here, yes, I will have spacing on the left and right and then bottom and top. But if I apply coloring, that coloring will overlay on the padding, so which I don't want. But if I use, let's say, actually we have two choices. You can apply margin to the page container, or you can apply padding to the body container. Totally up to you. Well, what I would do was apply padding to the body, which I will do now. So forget about the page container for now. So I will apply padding to the body, because the body will have top and bottom 30 pixels, and then left and right 100 pixels. Save and see. Wait, let me just remove this. See if anything changed. Okay, here is a 30 pixels and 100 pixels, and sure it's 100% pixels here. If you look at here, okay. So then, and also another 30 pixels right over here. Beautiful. All right, nice. So I will continue with the page container. Okay, page container. It's ID. Okay, now, this time, again, in the design file, it says we have a black background, but with 30% opacity, right? Where is it 30%? Which is this one. So 30% opacity. Well, now let's apply this rule to here. First, it's a background color, not attachment, background color. Background color. Okay, it's going to be black, but with 30% opacity. I'm not directly going to use a black color here. Remember, we have several ways to write color. Like one is the hex code. Then you have some numbers like, let's say for black color 00000. Or there is one RGB function. And also we have RGBA function. Red, green, blue, and alpha, which is opacity. So I'm going to use 0 for red, no green, no blue. The alpha value is 0.3, which is 30%. If I save it, and if I just get back to the changes, here is the background. You can see this and that here. Just refresh. Okay, nice. All right, so that's the page container. We have some problem here, if you have spotted already, which is actually the page size. So I will fix this later, but for now, it looks fine. Okay, so next item, header. As you can see in the design file, header is centered. So we will use, like, let's say, text align center. So that will definitely center all these items here. Coloring, white and red. Font family is totally different. And also, I believe, let's see the font family. Do I have the font family here? Yes, here is my font family that I will use for the Netflix. And that's another font family for the description, which is this. Okay, so I have Roboto, I have Sorts Mill, and I have boldly one SC. So how can I find these files? Okay, no worries. Again, first of all, we have a heading part. Inside the heading part, I'm going to center them, which text align will help me a lot. So is it a page container? No, it's the header part. So I will center all the elements inside the header, which is form header. So let's go to CSS. Apply this form header first. And then inside form header, text, align, center. Okay. Let's see. Nice. Netflix and the paragraph has been centered. Okay. What else? Do I have any spacing? Actually, I do have some spacing here, as you can see. So not sure exactly how many spaces do I have between this and that. I'm trying all this keyboard to just say if I can get to that point. No, of course. But I think I'll just guess this point. Usually it should tell you like how many pixels you should have here between. But so I will go and apply some, you can see some padding on top and bottom, so we can know that. So here's my text file. I select, and that's the 15 form top, and usually 15, I think, on the bottom. Well, we can use that 15. So let's go here again. Of course, the next question, where should I apply? I'm going to apply it to the title. So which is my form title ID. So select form title ID. And then I'm going to give some padding, which is 15 to 15. 15 pixels. Top, bottom, left, and right doesn't matter because it's already centered. So the result should be like this. Okay, nice. I have 15 pixels from top, 15 pixels from bottom. Nice. So here is the CSS file. Let me share the CSS with you. Okay, John has a question. No worries. I think you will push your code to your own GitHub. Then I think you will share your GitHub repo with who is going to grade your project, I believe. I have no exact knowledge about this, sorry. But font types, yeah, we will do it together now. Let me share the final CSS with you. And I will edit as, oops, didn't come. Okay, I think it did. Okay, yeah. All right, that's the CSS code so far. Okay, now question is for the next Netflix. What font is it? Again, usually in the Figma file, if you select the text, it tells you which font size it is. So which is bold blue one SC, sorry. So that's the font type we will use. That's the font size we will use, 50 pixels, and the font type. Again, in the Figma version you're using, you may not know which font was it, but again, when you receive in a designer from the designer, then you will be able to just click and see their properties actually. So this time, that's the font name, and then that's the size. Well, how can I find this font? Thanks to the Google fonts. So I will go to the fonts.google.com. I will search for boldly. This one. So here is the font that I'm going to use. So let's select on it, click on it, and then so we will select which style we will use. There's only one. So if you have more, then we would select that one. But we have one, so we will just click select this style. Then it will tell us which CSS code we have to use. Sorry, which HTML code to use and which CSS code to use here. So again, if you search boldly one, let's do it again. So if you search for boldly, click on it, and then select the font that you will use because we have no other font types here. So we will select only one, and it will exactly tells you what to put in your HTML file, which is this. I will copy this and include to my HTML file, like right after the style file. Okay, that's what I'm going to use. Okay, that's it. And plus, that's the CSS rule that I'm going to apply to header. So that's the CSS copy, and then go to the CSS part, which is form title. So here I will say font family. This. Save, and we are done, I believe. Let's go to the file, refresh. Now it is something like this, but it doesn't really look okay yet. That's because of the coloring plus letter spacing. If you go back to the project folder again, if you look at the Netflix, it is actually nicely separated for each text, thanks to the 5% letter spacing. So this is exactly the CSS rule that I will apply, letter spacing 5%. And plus, how about this red color? Okay, let's do that. Here it is. I'm going to use the letter spacing for the form title, which is 5%, but sorry, not 5%. Let's say 5 pixels. Okay, so now I can see that here. Okay, beautiful. The coloring, because the Felix is a red color, the net is white, net is already white. So what I need is span for only this Felix. So I will alter HTML a little bit. So for the Felix part, that's because this Felix must be red, because I need to apply a different CSS rule for it. Then let's use just span for it. Span, oops. Span, open the tag and close the tag after the Felix. There we go. Now, you can go here and apply that in the CSS file, or you can just use inline styling in here. It depends what you want to do. But for me, I'm going to apply in the CSS. ID first, form title, And the span. I have a space, which means apply these rules, the span inside the form title, which is color red. Any span in the form title will be red now. If you want to be perfect in the CSS selectors, do you remember there is a CSS dinner game? So you can play this game to be able to select the elements. Okay. So anyway, I'll get back to here. Let me share this game with you if you haven't seen any before. So here is, oh, interestingly, in the chat, my message has been deleted, isn't it? That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. I just wanted to share the CSS again. No, I did. It was there. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I did. No worries. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. What I need next is the form, which is this black, but tiny box, not white box, but I need a bit tiny box. Okay. You can see again, when you click, you can see its width here, 500 pixels. Next question you will ask in the CSS, we can apply width 500 pixels or min width 500 pixels or max width 500 pixels. So which rule should you apply? In my instinct says to me, it's the max width will be 500. Well, you will come to that point if you can't actually know which one you would go for. But again, you can try. If it doesn't work, change it to the min width or the width itself. But in here, I will use max width, and I will show you why I will pick that later. So the first of all, again, it's about width. It's the 500 pixels, min, max, or just the width itself. That's the question. But here is the form element, which is my survey, which is the main area actually. But I want to apply this to the section, which is survey form. Okay, so the ID survey form, okay. Max width will be 500 pixels. 1. Let's see. Nothing changed, but if you just hover your item in here, you can see, it's 500 pixels now. But it's on the left aligned. That's why it's just having an auto margin on the right-hand side. But again, we basically can text align center again for the main part. Okay, for the main. Let's try text align center first. For main, text align center. Let's see if that works. Oh, it works, but it doesn't really work as I wanted. It's just center every element here, but not in the main area. Okay, it didn't really center in the middle. It's just center the old items as it's their own section, own area. Now, this is not what I wanted, so it's not the text align. All right. Here is the magic now. There are again several ways to center the items. But for this case, we will use the margin auto to the survey form. Okay. Remember, we are going to edit the survey form, not the main. I just removed the main. Okay, no more main here. So in the survey form, I'm going to apply margin. Okay. Left and right will be auto. When the margin left and right is auto, which means it's automatically center the items. So left and right auto, top and bottom, for now, let's say 0 for the top and bottom, and left and right is auto. Okay, that should help me to center the element. Again, the text align center is aligning the text content. But we are trying to align whole survey form division. Is it this section? We are trying to center a whole section, not the text. If you just, as you remember, if you just apply the text align center, it just align all the texts, but not this section, not the survey form. So that's why if you want to center an element, not the text, not the content, but the element itself. So most probably that will be the way you center it. Margin, left and right auto, top and bottom for now, 0, but I think we will apply some settings for the margin as well. So let's refresh. Now it's centered. Beautiful. Remember now, we need a margin, right? It's just stick to this description. So what amount? So click on it, hold alternate key option. Now it doesn't show up, but now let's click the text and see how many pixels. It says 15. So we have actually a bit more here. So this is the 15 pixels. We have a bit more here. So let's make it 30 pixels. Okay. All right. So let's get back here. Let's make 30 pixels. 30 pixels. There you go. Can we use float? Since Flexbox, since CSS3, I'm not using any float anymore. And I also suggest for you to stop using floats. Instead, use flex. But here, I'm not going to use flex, but that's way simpler than that one. Because if you use float, float where? Float right or float left? So which float? I'm not floating the left. I'm not floating the right, but I'm actually floating, middling this, centering the element. That's the best way of actually centering the whole element. But again, I'm not applying any flex here. But if you do apply flex, that's another way. But I think it's much more simpler than flex as well. All right, so let's get back to file. All right, now I do have a margin. Okay, nice. But what I don't have is the black color and also this padding, right? There's a padding here, which I don't have yet. So the background is black. The padding size will be not 50, but it's 40. 40 from left, 40 to the right. As you can see here, there's 40 left and 40 right. Okay, there's 54 to the top, but anyway, we will manage it later. So it's 40 pixels for padding. Okay.
Can we do padding auto?
No.
No, we can't, right?
No, there is no padding auto. It doesn't center anything. Just margin left and right. Only left and right auto center it. Top and bottom auto, it doesn't make it in the middle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just left and right, and for only margin centers the element. Okay. So you could write this as like this as well. Let me show you. margin right, margin left auto, and then margin right auto. So that would also center, you know, the element, but no padding auto. There is no padding auto help you in any way. Okay, so I'll use 40 pixels padding for the pixels, and also I need a background black color. Okay, there we go. So I think I'm done with my form component, and if I refresh, voila, I have a black color. I have 40 pixels on the left, 40 pixels on the right. It's totally 500 pixels in the max width. Why it is max width? Because when I just make this smaller again, when it is reached to the 500 pixels, and you can see it's automatically shrinks. That's why I'm going to use max width for this. Yeah, max width. So it doesn't grow, but when it gets shrink, when the browser size is actually the same size with the form width, then it starts shrinking like this. That's why I use 50. Yeah, we still have the left. We have some problem, but we will fix later. It's interesting. The left side is 100, right is also 100, but because of actually we have this scroll thing, we will fix that later. No problem. Okay. All right. So I need to fix this. That's most probably because of the background width. We need to fix that. Okay. So yeah, let's apply some rules for the label, for the input box. Okay, that's basic. We need the name and input box not side to side, right? The name on the top, the label on the top, and an input box on the bottom. The best and quickest way to do it, or let's understand why they are side to side. So let's just inspect the name. Right click, inspect. If the inspectors in the label and also the input box, let's understand why they are side to each other. If you look at here, that's all about actually the it's not there, so that's why the display element is not here. So for input, the display, let's check the display element. Display element is inline block. So that's why they are in line with the label. But if I change the display property to block, then it will be just top and bottom, like div. This is one div, another div, another div. Do you know why they are not in line? Because the div style is, so let's click one of the div and check their display is block. So because they are block, all the divs, when you apply a div, it's just going under the another one. So we'll do the same rule here for the label and input. I'll make all the labels, let's say display block, all the inputs also display block. So let's apply this. What is the class name for my labels? I have no class name for any label because I already have, I will apply to all the labels. So let's say just label for this because I didn't apply any class for it. It would be great if you can apply class, but we didn't do it. I don't want to do it for all many labels here. We have a limited time. So that's why I'll just select the label and I will make display block. That's one thing. Because I will also apply to the input. Now I can use comma and also I can say input. So I use the same rule, two different elements. Saved and refreshed. And here it is. Oh, not good, because it applied the same thing for the checkbox as well, which I wasn't looking for. All right, so what should I do? Should I give a class name for this and different class name for the checkbox, or what? Okay, I think applying the different class for the checkbox would be okay. But I have a solution for it. Okay, looks like okay, right? What is missing here is basically, okay, let's fix this first. Okay, the movie type. So for example, the checkbox in the comedy. So let's go there for all the checkboxes we have. So we have checkbox class, the input and the label. Let's apply. Look, I'm not going to apply any class name because I already have a class for the checkbox group, right? Look at this. I already have a class name. So if I say dot, which is for class, checkbox group, and inside this checkbox group, I have an input, right? And also inside the checkbox group, I have a label. Look, I used a selector for the input in the checkbox group. I have a selector for the label in the checkbox group. Logically, you can say that, oh, Jamil, isn't it, doesn't it work? Because the checkbox group input and label inside the checkbox group, no. Every time when you select, so this is one selector, this is another selector. So you can just say label. This and this is the same. But this and this is not same. So that's why you have to exactly select the element like this. So label inside the checkbox and input inside the checkbox. So which means this comma apply this same rule to different elements. This time their display is inline block. Display inline block. Now look at this. Refresh. Ta-da! So they are inline. I'll be sharing this CSS with you. Basically, I will update my latest CSS here. Save changes. Perfect. And just say, okay, so that's the updated CSS I've just shared with you. All right, so what do we have left? And can we finish this in 5 or 10 minutes? Okay. I think we can. Well, what we need is a space between the label and the input box. So how many pixels is the space? Is 21? Well, let's apply this 21. And for every element, which is 20. Interesting. Let's make it 20, 20. So every element, every input group, so I have a 20 pixels margin. And for the label and the input box, I have another 20 pixels. So let's go to the label only, not the label and input, but just the label. Okay, just the label. I will basically give a margin button 20 pixel. That's one. Another thing, okay, so I have a space between this and the input. Okay, so I already have that. Next, I need a space between form group and for another form group, like this, another 20 pixel for it. So I will select the form group as a class now. Look at this. So it's not a label, but it's a class, which is form group. Okay. Dot form group. I think I don't have this before. I don't have form group. Then again, that's the margin top is actually 20 pixels. Now I applied 220 pixels. Look, I have the same rule, but I created this, I'll just copy the same thing. Why? I can just use the comma and this, so applying the same rule for 2 elements. That's it. Label and the form group. I apply this rule. Okay, So here is the result. Now I have this is an all space. Perfect. We can apply a bit more less rule for the label and the box if you want. So let's say for the label and the box. Okay. This time, sorry about this. I need this as a separate role, and for the label, because it's too much, as you see here. So let's just make it 10 pixels, maybe. Margin top, 10 pixels. So let's refresh. Margin bottom, sorry. Refresh. Now it's better. Okay. All right. So I have just added this too. Okay, what else? I need the box sizing. So let's click on it and see height 60. Or you can apply this as a padding if you want. So you can click on the text and you can apply like 10, 10, and from left 10 to 10 is a padding actually. So you can apply padding for this input box for all the inputs if you want. So that's padding. Let's try apply padding to all the inputs. So let's create just a separate input selector and let's apply some padding for 10 pixels. Okay, so the last one is this. Well, let's refresh. All right, the box gets bigger now. Nice. All right. And then we need this box wider, full width, which is we can apply width 100%. So let's say width 100%. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, nice. But if you see, the checkbox also get, 100 pixels. Okay, I need all the inputs get 100 pixels except this checkbox. The checkbox also input, right? So the checkbox itself is also input. Where is it? So here is also input. So it's 100%. But I don't want to apply this for these input types. One choice, you can apply class name for all these inputs. So you can, I think that's more logical. So we can apply a class name for the full width for this input and also select box and also text box. So let's apply some classes, or we have another choice as well. So I think the other one is much more easier. Okay, what we can do is, okay. No, just thinking. I think that's the best way. The input forms that you want to make is inside the form group, but you don't want the checkbox, the inputs inside the form, inside the checkbox group. So you don't want this input box 100%, which is in the checkbox group. But what we do is we will change it in the form group. But this input is also inside the form group. That's another hassle. Now, how can we fix it, actually? Again, giving them a class name is the quickest way, I think. Right.
Can you just change the width of the checkbox group? Or that?
We can do that, but they are also inputs. The checkbox group. Oh, no, we apply the rule to the input, not the checkbox group.
Oh, okay. I mean the input of the checkbox group.
We can. You are right. Let's try this. So all the all the input inside the checkbox group with not 100%. So with what? Auto or none or what? So let's use auto first. Let's try this auto. Then it may help. Yeah, thank you. So let's try this. And ta-da, that's beautiful now. Yeah, you're right. So we just selected the inputs in the checkbox group, and with auto, not 100%. So all the input boxes inside the checkbox group becomes auto. So basically, no extra class, just CSS. That's nice. Okay, that works fine as well. But now we are, I think, yeah, the page looks fine. Just a few more minutes. Okay, let's finish up. Okay, what else? This select box and the text area is not input, right? We apply the rules for the input, but not the select, not the text area. So let's do, and also say, comma, text area, and comma, select, save, and there we go. Done, right? Okay, nice. Okay, continue. We have the text box, and then, okay, the button. Okay, let's make the button real quick. So the specs for the button is actually red. We have a width, but we can control with the padding if you want. Yeah, we can control this with the padding for the top and right. Let's see what's the padding for the top and right. Okay, it says 22 or something. So let's apply, and then 62 for the left and right. Okay, 62 and 22. So let's apply for the button. For my button, okay, of course, the background color is red. 1. The padding. Padding, 22 top and bottom, and then pixels, of course, 62 left and right. Okay, color is, I think, already white. The color is, no, it's not the white. So let's change the color white. White. And the border radius. We need a border radius, 150% maybe. Let's try. Border radius 50%. Okay, let's try. I have no idea if that works. So refresh, and doesn't really look like what I really wanted. Okay, so that's really interesting. What we can do is actually, okay, not the 50%, but let's just.
You can do 20 pixels.
Well, yeah, let's try. Usually 50% should work, but no, it's because of something here. It really doesn't work. Okay, what I can do is select this button and inspect. And inside this button inspection, so let's go to increase this a little bit until I see, no, it's totally make my button oval. I'm doing something wrong here. Okay, what if I say 50 pixel? Not 50%, but 50 pixel. That's right. Then it fixed everything up. So let's say 50 pixel, not 50%. Okay, so we find a way. Done. And just one more thing, center it, right? So it looks okay, fine. And let's make center, which is not in the button. Remember, in HTML file, we've created a form submit ID. Now I can use, again, you can use margin auto. Okay, you can use margin auto. Let's try the margin auto. Margin 0 and auto should probably center this item as well. No, it didn't. Well, sometimes it works. What I will do is basically to the ID, which is ID form submit text align center. Now it will work. Do. All right. I believe the page looks okay. By the way, let me share the latest CSS code with you. Okay, updated. Now, yeah, all right. We have a bit of thing is not looking right, like the scroll thing. Well, that might be because of the body. Width is 100%. So if I can make the body with 100%, because it's automatically given. Okay, that's because of the padding of the body, I believe. That is the padding of the body. Okay, so if I remove the padding of the body, it still scrolls. No, it shouldn't scroll, actually. Nope. It doesn't fix. What if I can give the width 100% for the body? No, it didn't help. It still scrolls. That is interesting. It's not because of the background image. It's not because of the padding. Then why is that? Okay, I can't figure out now, but it's very, very minor issue. Once I fix this, I will write in the chat. So I don't want to take your time. So do you have any question, or do you have anything doesn't look right here? What do you think? So the maybe a little bit padding on the top and the bottom. We can add a bit of, you know, the black area for this form. So maybe we can add just a little bit margin after the form box, maybe, or we can apply padding inside this form area. So the page container. So let's apply to the page container. Where's the page container? Now let's apply some padding. From top, 20 pixels. From bottom, 20 pixels is fine. From right and left, yeah, that's fine. Just added the padding to the page container. I believe now. Now, okay, we have some more spacing here. Nice. Now it looks nice. Okay, just the scroll issue here. That's because I don't know why. Let me just check out and then replace the solution in the class chat. Okay.
Can you put just 100 view things like
viewport, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think
my
it's not
issue
about
was height, not the width for some reason. It was like going over.
Yeah, that I don't think about that's about a viewport. I have no idea why this had been happening. Actually, let's see. That's all okay. All okay. But I will figure out soon. No worries. But if you have, I mean, if you have no time, yeah, you can leave. But I will replace the code once I find the issue with the, you know, with this scrolling thing. But it wouldn't be happening actually.
Mr. Jamal.
Yes.
Thank you for everything, but I want just one more thing. Can you share link href in HTML, index HTML page?
Sorry, what should I do? The
index HTML inside a link.
The link. Oh yes, the link. This one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's share the all HTML file and all CSS file together.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, in the class chat. Okay, so see, you already have the CSS in the chat, and let me just share this HTML along with the CSS.
Thanks, sir. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will
See you next
post,
week. Yeah.
yeah, see you next week. I will
Thank
post
you.
solution if I find. Thank you very much. Just sharing the HTML file. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. See you later.
See you next week.
Sir,
Yes, please.
do you know what the border box thing you did initially at the beginning? Do you know what that did?
Border box. Okay. All right. Let me explain about the border box. Let's say if you haven't applied this border box. Okay. So let's refresh the page and let's go to HTML. Now let's close this up. Look what's happening. Okay. I am sure I have applied the same amount of padding on the left and right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but because of the box sizing is the content box, look what's happening. It's not equal, but I am sure that it's equal. And look at what's happening in here. It's equal, but it's overflowing the content. Can you see this?
Yeah.
That's the problem. But if I can change it to the border box, now I can exactly control in every aspect in terms of spacing, like padding and margin. Maybe it didn't explain very well. So let's just type border box versus content box. I think one of the documentation will explain is in some picture. I think, let's see. No, it doesn't really explain very well. Maybe this. Okay, look at this. If it is content box, as you see, it's overlapping its parent. It's not inside the parent. But if you apply this, it's exactly in the parent. So if you extend the size of the child container, the parent also extends. But if it is content box, it's totally content, not the border. I mean, as you see, it doesn't push the borders. It's just overlapping the borders. So you may have asked this question. So why we have content box? I have never done any project with the content, but the content box is still there since the first version of the HTML. It was the default, but then because CSS get better and better and better, then it didn't really help. So then they implemented the border box, which is actually more useful. Again, I haven't seen any project with content box for a long time now. So basically, we just convert it to the border box. Right, we start, right, we actually reset the file, CSS file.
Okay.
So that's basically this. And if you really wonder about this and want to read more, so let me share the link with you. Here you go.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think the font types we haven't changed, and another font type we haven't changed. We forgot that. But you know how to make the font available, as you remember, inside this font site. So we apply for the Netflix. So you can apply this for this title, and you can apply this for the Roboto here. It's basically, if you still have time, that's fine. But if you just want to leave, please, you can, of course. But I will basically go and apply this font families as a one Roboto for here and one another font type for this. So let's go to the fonts.google.com, which is where is it? Oh, this one. So let's search for the Roboto this time. Roboto. Here's Roboto. What I need is basically the regular one. So this one. I'll just click this, select this style. Okay. It's automatically added. Look at here. It's automatically have now the Boldly one and Roboto all together. Okay. So the other font type for this description was sorts meal grody. Sorts meal grody. So let's search those for sorts meal grody. So here is the font that I'm looking for. And this font is italic, I believe. No, it's not. Oh, italic. Yeah, you can see italic. So what I'm going to do for this one, and this time, I will select the italic version. Regular italic. Not regular, but regular italic. So select this style. So it's 3 fonts has been selected. What I will do, I will just copy all this link here. And I will replace all this link in here, except my styling file. There we go. Now I have all these 3 font files. And next, I of course need to apply this for the form description. So which is this form description. So form header, and let's create an ID form description. And I'm going to make a font family, which is now this sorts meal grody. This one. And font size is actually 23 pixels. So save, and I believe here is the font and italic, and also apply Roboto for where? For all the body. So here again, font family Roboto. Actually, I can just copy from the Google's website, which is this. Okay, and apply this font family Roboto for all the rest of the project. And here it is. Oh, nice. Okay, done. All right then. So I will share the updated codes with you soon, and I will see you again next week.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.